I just want to say I'm desperate and I hope all of my stuff fits. Hello, you dirty potters. How are you today? In today's video, we are fulfilling a special request from one of my patrons, Leah. She heard that we got a hold of some of the brand new AMACO clay from the chocolate line, both white chocolate and dark chocolate. And she was wondering if we can mix these together. Now here's my conspiracy theory just from my years of experience in the ceramic art world. I do not think these two clay bodies are different clay bodies whatsoever. I know visually they look like they're different colors, but kind of like human beings, the fact that they're different colors truly doesn't matter to the substance of how they're made. Realistically speaking, I'm pretty sure that these two clay bodies are made from the same base and that one of them just has a little bit more color in it. So to her question, even though I haven't tested this yet, yes, I'm pretty sure we can mix these together. So in today's video, we're going to be taking these two clay bodies in a mixed form all the way from their throwing stage to the end of their life cycle in the fully glazed stage, and we're going to be checking them out and seeing how they do. We're going to mix the colors. We're going to make your pro-segregationist grandpa mad. I have these teacups that people seem to really like whenever I mix colors into them, but generally speaking, I get my porcelain clay body, I recycle it, and I dump mason stain in there. Not too much, I don't want to oversaturate the color, but I dump just enough in there for it to be different colors when I remix it with the original color. So realistically, something like this from my website, earthnationceramics.com, is the same clay body. I just dumped a little bit of color in there. So I think I'm going to try and do that with today's product, which of course means we are going to need double the amount of clay for this product because it is a carved product, and I need something to carve out. 1.15 ounces. 1 pound, 15 ounces. Yeah, we'll go for that. A little potter tip here, whenever you're making a round of work, always save a little bit of clay for both the trim, the marking, the stamp, whatever you put for the bottom of your mugs, as well as things like handles. It is a tragedy for me to throw all of the clay mindlessly and then be like, oh no, I have no trim clay left. For those of you who have never mixed clay together, it's a little bit difficult in that you can't mix it together too much. Take these two clay bodies for instance. If I mix them together like this, and I wedge them together, as most of you will probably do, it comes out a really nice spiral if I wedge 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That's good right there. And you get this really nice spiral out of this. And because this is the same clay body, I'm pretty sure, just one has much more color and iron in it, that means that these will work together pretty well. But if I continued to mix these, something I'm not going to show you, it would just become one brand new color of a gray blob. So when you mix these together, try not to go over about 12 wedge cycles. Otherwise, you're going to overmix. Now I got to put it back together because I was trying to be all cool. You'd never know. You would never know this is cut in half. You would have no idea. I know some people have trouble counting the amount of wedging they actively do, and it is kind of dependent on how much power and actual torque you're putting into your wedging and how much wrist turning you're putting in. So as a key note for anyone who's not just counting, when you start right here, right, you start with the colors, and let's just say you're doing a good old half and half. What I generally do is I mix, because I'm starting with the white side, I mix until I know that I have turned it over enough to see a new color on the top portion, because I've mixed the clay into itself coming in my direction. And this is kind of when I think about stopping. So we're gonna let this rest for a little while, make a bit more of them, and then I'll show you how I carve these. Keisha! Look who came by to say hi, everybody. Keisha's here.
Feed me! Nom, 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 nom. Nom, 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 nom. What are you looking at?
You know, it sounds weird, but much like in the episode where I was talking about how clay is kind of layered in skin, it's not just like one thing, much like human skin, we have different amounts of skin per layer. You can kind of see right here, it's nice and spiral, but when we cut through this, you're gonna see a completely different pattern, and it'll be very, very obvious. But for now, we have to let these dry for maybe about a day or so to let them get into the leather to leather hard phase, where we can actually cut and trim them. It's about 2 days later now, and I'm pretty sure these are just dry enough to start carving them. The rest of you have to go in the no-no corner. I'm sorry. I don't think you guys have ever seen me make one of these before, but generally speaking, whenever I make them fairly thick so I can carve through the body, and I start carving them in the leather soft phase. So this is still movable. So you guys haven't really seen me do many of these before, but the way I usually do them is by making a thick cylinder like we talked about, and I make sure it's usually multiple colors. And after it gets into the leather soft phase, I will carve this with either a mud tools trim tool that kind of looks like this. It's more of a bow tool, or I'll use the Dirty Girls tool. I've recently moved over to the Dirty Girls tool. By the way, I'm not sponsored by them, but I've moved over to them mainly because the mud tools one kept on breaking on me and I have to restring it every time. And I'm not good at restringing it, so this is much easier to use for me. Or I would just use my regular old wire tool. And it sort of works like this, where I'll find a point about halfway up the mouth right here. So my wire will be essentially right there. I won't stick all the way to the top. It'll just be where that little mark is right there. And I'll cut downwards. And most of the time I'll make a jagged edge by cutting outwards. So it looks from your angle kind of like this. And this will show you a world underneath the clay body. And you can kind of see right here that I made some beautiful texture, but also there's a line right here that's made by the little nails that hold it together right here. As I'm stroking this part of the nail is just scraping downwards. So you can see this big snail trail. Probably should not call it a snail trail. Book talk has ruined me. And you can sort of see how I'm starting out in one area and then I stop when I know the clay is a little thick and I just pull out, right? And once I pull out, you can see this jagged type of edge here. When we're finally done, this will be a very, very aesthetic thing. People seem to really like this on an ergonomic scale. They like the feel of this natural kind of jagged edge. It feels like an agate ware, even though I don't know if I would categorize it as such. I know this is an AMACO clay review, but I'm getting into it because I'm sure people are going to ask how I do this type of work anyway. So this is sort of a review slash demo. But usually I get this rock right here, this rose quartz, because I've been watching Steven Universe too much. And I will pick one side that has this kind of progressionary line, and I'll just put little dots all the way up the body, right here. I saw another artist do this, and realistically, I just started copying them. I'm not going to pretend like it was my idea. But usually, even though you can't see it, whenever people hold it, they feel this this type of texture right here. And they like this, you know? My lord, look at this graveyard. So I know this is technically a clay review, but I do want to bring something to your attention while doing this. Number one, you can see there's a very, very, very clear difference in between the way you wedge and how many times you wedge and the ratio of clay that you put in there. This, although wedged the same way as this, are essentially different ratios of black versus the white chocolate clay body that AMACO gave us. The wedging style also matters. Which one was on top, which one was on bottom. You'll have to kind of experiment with that. The second thing is that if you carve these, you will get a completely different pattern from what you started with. What we started with was essentially akin, let me see if I can find it, here it is, akin to this. This is essentially what we started with. This is kind of what people expect when you make mixed clay bodies, but when you carve through them, you will get a different pattern because inside is a completely different layering pattern than the outside of the clay body, which is one of the reasons I carve them. I really want this to come out. You'll also notice that I was much heavier with my carving on the bottom. If you go back and look at the video, you'll see that I'm just kind of carving the bottom. And that's because I'm going to trim these anyway on the bottom, so I made sure they were fairly thick on the bottom. The middle, while still thick, like I said at the beginning of the video, doesn't have as much clay as this portion does here. So you'll notice a lot more difference in the depth of my carving than up here. And because of that, you definitely see a different pattern. I know some of you right now are probably wondering why I haven't put a handle on this. As I said before, this clay dries really fast, and personally, I think I'm past the point of putting a handle onto this. It's getting leather hard. When we first started recording, I don't know, 30 minutes ago, this stuff was leather soft, but I think this is going to be a new pen holder for somebody because we are not putting a handle on this anymore. love that. This is good. You know, and I haven't confirmed this yet. Maybe I'll put it over here somewhere by the time this video comes out. But I do think this is the same clay as the other two clays. I do think white chocolate, milk chocolate, and dark chocolate are all the same technical formula or recipe, but they have kind of additives to them from the white chocolate clay body. So I do think they made a really good white clay body and then added some mason stain to it or something. And then after that, they're like, well, let's make it darker, and added more mason stain to it. And so this is probably from the same family of clay, but they're just different colors. Now, we could have a discussion, if we were doing this another way, about mixing something like, you know, this clay body and red stone from Laguna. That would be a conversation where I would say those clays are kind of different, so let's see how they work out. And that would take a lot more testing. But my conspiracy theory at the moment is that this is just the same clay body with color in it. Now, let's put these in the kiln-o as nobody says that. I don't know why I said nobody says that. I think when I was like 5, I just thought that putting O at the end of things was Spanish, but I live in California, and that is extremely wrong from like an obvious point of view. I don't have any space in the kiln. Is it gonna fit? Let's see if it'll fit. There's the cup right there. I just set it down. Will it fit? Will it fit? Will it fit? You know what? That'll fit. I'm gonna say that'll fit, and then that'll make it fit. It actually wasn't gonna fit before when I said it would fit. Now it'll fit. Oh, that is close. That is so close. I think that'll fit though, actually. I'm sorry, bro. You are not going in the kiln. I deeply apologize. You are beautiful, you know, if that makes you feel any better. You are gorgeous. But unfortunately, being attractive doesn't mean that you're worth anything as far as actual work ethic goes. It just means you're a little hot. So, all right, let's start the bisque. Okay, now that everything's out of the kiln, let's take a look. Let's take a look at our dark chocolate mixed with white chocolate first. This one is majoritively dark chocolate over the white chocolate, glazed with Graymon V2 on the top. So I know that I've probably said this multiple times in the video already, but I'm gonna say it again. I think that the white chocolate, milk chocolate, and dark chocolate line from AMACO are all the same exact clay, but one or two of them have stains or more stain in them. So I think the base is white chocolate. And granted, I just want to put this out there. This is a conspiracy. They have not told me this whatsoever. This is just my Potter brain telling me that white chocolate is the base clay, which is essentially a porcelain-like stoneware. And then we have milk chocolate, which has stain in it. And then they put more stain in it, and that make dark chocolate. So the question of, can we marbleize these clays together is an obvious yes, considering that they probably came from the same family altogether. It's not like I'm mixing Black Mountain and Dave's Porcelain, or it's not like I'm mixing B mix with grog with, you know, Black Mountain. This would be akin to me mixing B mix with grog with B mix with no grog. It's like they're the same clay. AMACO, please correct me in the comments below if you see this video. If they are not from the same base of clay, I want people to know that. But regardless of if they are or not, they seem to be working pretty well together. And that's no more obvious than the other testers that we have, because here I decided to do different ratios. What you're seeing here is majoritively dark chocolate with white chocolate kind of splayed in a little bit. This here is an exact contrast from this one here, which is majoritively white chocolate with dark chocolate put in a little bit as well, just the inverse of the previous test. Unfortunately for me, I am gonna have to find a better clear gloss glaze, considering if you look really closely, if you put this clear a little too thick, it ends up getting cloudy, and that's not really prime for my usages. So when you see that I left most of this bare and this right here unbare because human lips will touch this part here, you can see it gets a tiny bit cloudy, and that messes up the color, and I don't want that. I want pure color like this, so I do have to develop or find a better clear. Oh, Dante, you should try my clear. My clear is really good. No, listen, I've been doing this for a very long time, and I've learned that the clear gloss glaze that you use is most likely suited for the clay body that you have. And just because you use it on your clay body and it works for you, doesn't mean it'll work for me, because my clay has different thermal expansions and different absorption rates and different this and different that. So while I do appreciate you telling me in the comments below you should use my clear, I want to be very I want to be very clear that using a glaze is not a one-size-fits-all category when you have multiple variables. There's things such as application and like specific gravity and viscosity. There's more things than just use bottle thing works, as I'm sure a lot of people will tell you in the comments below. So don't worry, little dirty potters. I'll figure out a good clear sooner or later. So the first one you saw was mostly black chocolate mixed with a little bit of white, and then this was white chocolate mixed with a little bit of black. And then we come over here and we have milk chocolate mixed with a tiny bit of dragon fruit, because at this point I started to get curious about other clay bodies in my gambit other than just AMACO clay bodies. And so I mixed dragon fruit from the AMACO company with milk chocolate and used their lunar pink from AMACO as well. So when I was growing up in the clay world, they had this kind of weird sandstone buff clay that every pumpkin spice mom in the world loved. And because you could just leave the clay body raw, much like this, everyone was using it because it had these like cool autumn, spoopy pumpkin spice kind of colors, and had little bits of what I'm going to assume is iron in them. And those showed up in the clay body afterwards. So I am very, very happy that someone finally came up with what I assume to be a porcelain-like clay body with little blue specks in it. And that's what dragon fruit is for me. So that's why I use it so much. You know what, when I look back on it, the amount of things that I do out of spite or because I'm annoyed that too many people do it is like half my personality, if I'm being real with you. This is probably my favorite cup here. This is Teal Drift from AMACO, mixed in with dark chocolate and white chocolate from the AMACO company. Just straight AMACO, the entire cup. And, you know, ever since I did that review on Teal Drift from AMACO, my students have been raving about it. I bring extra bottles to class just because I know they like it so much. It really is a beautiful glaze. On top of that, you're getting a tiny bit of phase separation-ish here, right? I like a bit more phase separated stuff than just this. You can see through this glaze if you put it on correctly, which is wild to me. I was heavily considering keeping this cup, but I can't. I have so many. I can't keep more cups, guys. Some of you out there might be wondering what happens when you mix the two darker clay bodies, because at the moment we've been doing pretty high contrast. We've been doing white and milk chocolate, or dragon fruit and milk chocolate and dark chocolate, or dark chocolate and white chocolate. We've been doing stuff like that, right? Because it's very obvious with those. But I did take the liberty of doing one that has dark chocolate and milk chocolate with Greymon V2 glazed over it. And I can kind of see the difference, but it is a bit harder to tell. Although this one is a bit harder on the eyes, we still had to test what would happen if we put two different dark chocolate clay bodies together, just to see if there was a very clear resolution on it. And you can't really see it. If I put this at a table and you kind of looked at it from this angle, you wouldn't be able to see its two clay bodies. But if I put this at a table, you can probably tell what's up even at a side glance. You can most likely tell one of these has two clay bodies mixed in. And unless you look a bit closer, it's a bit more difficult to tell which one is a marbleized clay body. You know, and throughout my test, it's confirmed over and over and over again. This is Greymon V2 with the white chocolate and dark chocolate clay body. Here's another white chocolate and dark chocolate. This came out great. Same thing, let's see here. Same thing here. So if the question we were to answer in this video is, can we put two of these clay bodies together and they'll work just fine? The answer is a resounding yes. You can mix these clay bodies to make marbleized work. Well, thank you, Dirty Potters, for joining me today for the marbleized clay review of the new line of AMACO clay bodies from the chocolate line. You know, I kind of knew before I started this video that I would be able to marbleize these clay bodies because, again, I'm holding fast to my conspiracy theory that these are just the same clay body, but with stain dumped in them to some level, and they made the clay body so premium, so good that it can handle the stain without bloating and still get a great color, which, you know, I'm not mad at it. It's a little expensive, but I'm not going to complain about how good these clay bodies are coming out. Keep in mind, AMACO is sponsoring this video, so a big shout out to AMACO. Links down below to these clay bodies. Remember to click all those YouTube buttons so AMACO doesn't marbleize my booty cheeks in the middle of the night. And I'll see you, Dirty Potters, next week.
Thank you for your patronage.
That's right. I don't work with bat wings. I just stick the pins right in and let the ball roll. I'm dangerous. I'm a bad boy.